Welcome you to lesson 13 in the series called Living It Out Colossians. This coming week we're going to continue in our path at looking these garments we're to put on in chapter 3 verse 12. I hope you don't mind taking a look at each one of these, one or two at a time. It does take our study a little bit longer, but I'm finding for me that by focusing on one or two of these garments to put on at a time, it really helps me to evaluate my own heart. Helps me to go through my week and be thinking about it as I'm going through my everyday activity. How am I living this out? Am I living this out? What do I need to change? So thank you for your patience. I know I'm getting a lot out of it. I hope you are too. 2 weeks ago, we got to look at the word compassion, and we discovered that this is where you begin to be intentional about seeing the need. Sometimes that requires being available to the interruptions, but when we're compassionate, we see the need and then we seek to alleviate the pain and the suffering from someone else. Compassion's an attitude of the heart that seeks the best for those around them. And then we talked last week about the word kindness, where it kind of feels like it goes hand in hand with compassion. Compassion's more about seeing the need and having that heart response that wants to take that pain and suffering away from that person. Kindness is actually the action. Our hearts are put into action to do something, and then we become kind to them. This coming week, I want to look at two more garments to put on. We're going to study them together, and they're the next two garments in verse 12, the words humility and meekness. And living these two words out can be quite difficult because it requires us to die to ourselves. And we can't, there's no way possible that we can be full of pride and arrogance and have a heart that longs to be humble and longs to show gentleness to someone else. Last week I mentioned that when I was reading through these garments listed in this verse 12 of chapter 3, when I saw the word kindness, I thought I could easily move beyond that because it was doable in my life. As I studied the word, I had to recount those words and think, nah, I've got a little bit more to work on. So I didn't want you to gloss over it. This week, I think we could be tempted to gloss over, quickly move beyond these two words because they're just not easy to let the Lord transform our hearts so that these are reflected. Our hearts, that fleshy part of us, long to hold on to our selfish pursuits. And this is something that you have to open your hands up to and surrender to God your life in order for Him to do the heart surgery that has to happen to show this attitude. Well, not only is it hard to model these because of wanting to hold on to our selfish desires and our selfish pursuits, it is hard to do these because our culture tells us today that these character traits are not right, that they really speak of someone being spineless or just too soft. This couldn't be further from the truth, because when you think about the word gentleness or meekness this week, I want you to think about this, and this is something I want you to write down in your notes. If we were to look at the Greek translation of what the word gentleness or meekness means, we would discover that it actually came from a term that was used for a wild horse that had become obedient to the bit and the bridle. Well, therefore, this word certainly doesn't mean a lack of power. Spineless, it doesn't mean that you're soft. What this word means, and write this down, gentleness or meekness means strength under control of the master. I love that, because when our lives are surrendered to what the Lord needs to do in our lives to reflect more of His character, He takes over and He chisels away at the things that He doesn't want in our hearts. And then He fills us with more of Himself, with more of His power. And we have the strength to live these out, to live these garments out, because we're under the control of the Master. Gentleness means finding a loving and kind way to do a tough job. Think about that this week when things are not going your way, or things that interruption comes and you're frustrated, or someone's just draining you. Remember that gentleness means finding a loving and kind way to do that tough job. It means control over one's own life and situation in a way that allows kindness and compassion to just flow through. Gentleness is not being afraid to do something that is needed to be done. I'm going to be asking you this week to take a look at Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 8, because I believe that this passage is the foundation for which our hearts can really see the true meaning of humility and meekness. So download your study notes. You're going to see where you're going to be able to read that passage and do some heart reflection this week. I'm also going to share with you in those study notes just some thoughts that I came up with as to what humility and gentleness looks like in our everyday life. So take a look at that. It's just to get your heart thinking, to get some evaluating done. By no means is this an end-all list, but I thought I would just throw out some things that came to my mind that could get you too started in evaluating your own life and seeing what areas in my own life do I need to just turn over to the Master's hand. I'm praying for you this week. I cannot wait to dig in more for myself and to see how I can become more humble and more gentle this week. Have a graceful week. Take care and bye-bye.